Hello, and welcome to Goal Fulfillment. And this is the fifth interview I'm doing of a series where I'm interviewing entrepreneurs about their goals for 2021. So, the basic idea here, you think of the having goals as coming up with a plan when you, like in sports, you make a game plan before the football game. And just like in our goals, when we do have a plan, some things we cannot foresee. And sometimes things will go right and things will go wrong, and we will learn. And just like so you have your game plan to win the football game or our goals, and then it's good to check back in and see, okay, what's working, what's not working. So in the football game at halftime, some things are going well and some things are not. Even if you're winning 55-10, there's some things that are going wrong. And if we don't address that and you just get too confident, then some of those things are going wrong in the second half could start, oh no, what happened to my lead? What happened to my 55-10? So so it's the same thing here. So there's a second interview with the entrepreneurs, Daniel and the others that you've seen in other videos, that we'll meet in June at the halfway point and see what's working and not working through a series of questions, and then makes adjustments. And then at the end of the year, just because, and it's the same thing, just because you, good coaches and good entrepreneurs, just because things have went well, they don't they don't get too comfortable. And at the end, what you do is see what's working and not working, and learn those lessons, and stop and learn those lessons and continue to make adjustments. And the longer you're doing a sport or the longer in entrepreneurship, you're better able to make these adjustments if you've learned these lessons before. And that's what happens, like entrepreneurs that start all over, they're not starting all over because they've learned a lot of lessons and they can peak quicker because of all the experience they've had. So at this time, could you introduce where you are now, a little introduction about what you do?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Robert, and thank you for having me. This is exciting for me. So I have a corporate job at a large financial institution. I'm actually have the title of vice president, and I'm looking to transition to an early retirement because last year I set up my business and got certified as a life coach. And I'm also a musician, a singer-songwriter. I'm standing in front of my old piano here. Um, and let's see, I'm a meditator. I go for walking. Long walks is really my main form of exercise, and I I think that's me in a nutshell.
Well, that's awesome. And I like how you're taking on new challenges and new adventures. I'm sure you'll really grow from this experience.
Yeah, yeah. I already have, so yes, and more to come. Right.
Could you start off by introducing your goals for 2021?
Yes, and so in my corporate world, I've worked as a project manager for many years. So I have a long history with working with goals and and achieving them. So I have a lot of them, and I'm also my mind works that way. I'm a planner, so I enjoy planning. So I have lots of goals for 2021. Um, Primarily, the main goal that I have is to build my coaching business that I started, um, and um, so goals. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm answering the questions. So um, I want to be examining when is the best time for me to retire. Make sure that I'm everything's set up so that I can launch my business and retire and have those both be successful. I also have sort of ongoing goals as a musician, singer songwriter, to be writing the next song and the next song, and lots of little goals within my creativity and songwriting. Um, and then I would say some interpersonal goals of wanting to get to know myself better, to learn the things that are my weaknesses and build up my strengths. And then I have like health goals. So wanting to eat better, understand what nutrition works best for me, and physical goals of wanting to keep my body, um, in its best operating state. So so those are the kind of main goal areas.
Yeah, I like how it encompasses different areas, because sometimes we can get so focused on our goals we forget about health and interpersonal relationships and other things like that, because those other things give us the fuel to carry on when we're taking on harder challenges, and when it gets difficult. That's that little edge that keeps us in the game, much like an
Absolutely.
athlete trains. And it's not all about, hey, I can run this fast. It's their diet and things like
Right.
that also.
Yeah, I think that's really true, and I've seen where if one part of a system falls down, then the whole system can fall down. And so I really champion making sure that all my plates are spinning as best as I
Exactly.
can keep them spinning.
That's a good analogy. And the other thing is what you've learned from your career and the goal setting. You can carry that into those lessons, and you can tap into the stories from those lessons into your life coaching. So that is a good strength that will you can carry on.
I have a really good example of that if you'd like to hear it.
Yes, thank you.
So I have noticed, I'm pretty mild mannered, but I noticed that there are a lot of things in life and in my corporate job that really frustrate me, that really just make me angry. And so I had an opportunity um, to take a kind of a special course in Scotland that was called Pathmakers, and we learned a lot. It was sort of a custom design course where you could, study aspects of creativity and spirituality. And at the end of it, we were asked if we wanted to develop a workshop to give to others. And so I really kind of dug down into myself, and I thought, you know, I'm really impacted by anger and frustration so much in many parts of my life. So I developed a workshop about how to reframe anger and rethink of it so that we can have a better handle on it, or so I can have a better handle on it. And so that brought out a really interesting workshop that I've been using in my life coaching job, and it's really brought some interesting opportunities that all occurred through paying attention to one of my weaknesses and looking at how can I turn this around.
And turn it into a strength. I no,
Right.
I like that, because a lot of times, like with self development, we focus on some area that we want to work on, and then once we go through and help ourselves, it's like, hey, I want to give back. This works so well for me, and I want to give back, and I want to have, some reach and really impact people's lives. Hey, this worked for me, and I'm not the only person who is facing this.
Right. Yes.
And then I like how when you went there, they said you could do a workshop, and you said, "Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take on this challenge," and that's really awesome.
Right. Right. Yeah, it was especially unique to challenge myself in that way and work on something that wasn't easy for me to work on, but there's been some interesting benefits and yeah.
Yeah, really cool. So the second part, what happens is a lot of times when people have goals, they'll say, "I'm going to do blah blah blah," and then and sometimes they'll just say make a statement, and they don't have something measurable like I'm going to do this by the middle of the year, or they don't write down a step by step plan. So have you come up with each one of those goals? Did you come up with steps to achieve those goals? And if you could you share the steps?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and I think that there's a variety of answers. So, with my retiring early from my corporate job, I the considerations there, I want to make sure that I'll be taken care of into the future. I want to make sure that all of my preparations before I retire are in place, and I'm thinking through all of those. Um, one thing that I did to help me look at the steps is I went to a class that was offered um, by, I think it was by an insurance company to teach you how to be ready for retirement. And so, you get together with, and it was a free 2 day class, very
Okay.
well presented. And so that was a really good, like going to an external source to say, hey, what are the steps? What are all the details? And so they gave us a big booklet and a workbook and lots of good information about things that like I probably learned about five key pieces that I didn't know about how to be prepared. And then when I think about, I've launched my business, so I have my creative engagement coaching business, um, and I've been coaching people and offering workshops and writing articles, and so now my goals around that are growing the business. So how do I measure that, and how do I make that concrete? Well, one of the goals is to understand my finances, just like I am to be prepared for retirement, and then look at, will I be able to generate the income, um, and if so, how much? And so I kind of developed my own little spreadsheet of the important strata. So there's a booklet that I found that has a little chart that they came up with that I've adopted, and it sort of gave you a sense of how to understand your proficiency and your level of coaching, um, that I think really works well. So an example would be, when you're a student, you're coaching pro bono and you're learning how to coach, and you have a certain amount of clients as a student. And then when you start asking for payment as a coach, then you haven't mastered coaching per se, but you're helping people. And so they came up with a really useful strata. And one of the strata that I've set as my goal is looking forward to that time when I can pay all my bills through my coaching. And so, and then there's more lofty goals after that. But so that kind of gives me, like, that's a measurable way to look at it. Now, if I answer the same question about, say, songwriting, um, I have taken various amounts of music classes, and uh, I think that there probably are really, like, rules for songwriting, but they're not, creativity and artistry um, teaches, you learn different disciplines about different art forms. And then at a certain point, the more you learn, you realize that one of the things you need to learn is when to let go of the rules, because creativity isn't really bounded. So what I've found my own way into songwriting, and having written for many, many years now, and I have like 3 self-published CDs out on iTunes and
Wow, that's awesome.
Spotify, and I'm constantly songwriting. So if I take a walk and I think of a phrase that's very, very poetic, I say it into my voice memo or I write it down, and then I always have a lot of material that I'm working with, and so I think of songwriting goals in a very different way. And I have ideas like for the next song that I write, I want to make sure that it's very different from the last song that I wrote. So I think of some of those things as very different. And if I talk about the goal, say, of nutrition, um, excuse me, I'm headed towards 60 years old. So as I'm getting older, I realize that I need to, nutrition as you get older might mean eating even less. And I fall on the side of being an overeater. So I need to learn some new skills as I get older. And so I'm looking at trying to change some habits, and thinking of portion control, and even like when I serve myself food, I'm single and I live alone. Um, do I want to serve myself big buckets of salad, even though it's like good, healthy food? Or do I want to start to have smaller bowls and start to notice when I'm full and things like that? So, with each goal that I have, the steps might be very different, and it's sort of the context is really important.
Exactly. I had to do portion control because I was diagnosed a few years ago as being diabetic. So, and coming from an Italian background, it was like, it was like you would eat the dish and then there would have to be another dish, and then
Mangia, mangia.
everyone telling you don't be bashful, have some more, don't be bashful, and this big enjoyment of food and all this. And that's the thing. The port when you were talking about portion control, that's the thing. I'm a type 2 diabetic, so it's not like insulin doesn't work. It does. But at a certain point, it kind of shuts off. So I have to eat smaller portions and kind of stop before it shuts off. And then it does okay. So that's the basic idea there.
Yeah,
Definitely. One second.
sure.
Which of your goals may be the most challenging or difficult to achieve?
I think that answer is pretty easy, which is growing my life coaching business, because prior to this, I've worked at medium to large corporations, and it's a very different sensibility when you are your own boss, and you know um, you're setting your own hours, but you're also generating your business. When you work, within a large corporation, you're often not having anything whatsoever to do with creating or pulling the customers in. So having my voice heard, and you know, really networking is sort of my kind of banner concept. And it's not that it's difficult for me to network. I inherited from my father a real kind of gregarious nature, and I like talking with people. I probably have the gift of gab, and it's probably asking me questions. I'll just keep going. But it's learning some new ways of interacting, and sort of always having a business card and not being as reserved or shy about what I do. And because it's life coaching, I feel like that's also an advantage because um, the world needs coaching, I think. And it's really, it really is helping others achieve their most successful outcomes. So in a way, it has its own kind of megaphone. It's built in. It's easy to talk about it, and really it turns ordinary conversations into really deeply meaningful conversations. So um, the other part of this answer to your question is that during a global pandemic, this is a lot more difficult.
Yes,
And so, the kinds of like this is an example of a meaningful connection. You and I are having a conversation about some of the most important things to our lives.
exactly.
And so it means a lot to us. And so we'll take what we can get during a
So
global
true. So
pandemic,
true.
you
You
know.
know what's happened? It's interesting. I found in myself that with the lockdown and everything, I've actually gotten more outgoing and assertive from it. That it's brought that more out, and there's not this hesitation. It's kind of like, and you're more excited to connect and more like hungry for it, and let's go. And these little things in our head, these little stumbling things in our head, like, oh, is this a good idea? Will this really work or whatever? You're like, hey, let's go.
Right. Yeah.
It's caused that certain part of my personality to get more stronger,
Right.
and now I'm not hesitating. I'm like, hey, let's have. It's almost like, hey, let's have some fun.
Yeah. And it's interesting that to contrast it with working with people in person, because I was just starting to go to the meetings and go to the conventions and go to the areas where people would be for the purpose of networking
Exactly.
and starting to learn those skills. If I'm in a crowd, how do I spot the people that are going to be good to talk to? I
Exactly.
still don't have those answers. I'm still
Yeah,
learning
and
some of
we're
those
learning
skills.
along the way, of
Right.
course. What do you think for your goals? What do you think you may have to learn or study, or different skills that you may learn have to learn or study to help you achieve your goals for this year?
Yeah, I know that I don't have all the answers, but some of the answers are I one of the skills that I have had to throw myself into is actually making videos. So just like you were explaining at the beginning of this interview, you know, you want people to understand the reason and the purpose and the context for this interview. And so you want to set it out and I have been such an editor when it comes to making music, or I've also generated a couple podcasts. Um, and so when it came time for me to just describe my coaching or describe there's an assessment test that I offer that's kind of a unique offering for my coaching business. And so I wanted to create a video to describe, what is an assessment test, and a similar process that we're talking about of measuring and executing and measuring and executing and measuring, and how do we do that with our own attitudes in our lives. And so creating videos, it's a new skill, so I have to learn how to um, just in one or two takes, confidently share my ideas. And so I find I'm a little bit of a fumble bumble when I'm trying to create a video, so I'm being patient with myself, and I'm creating some videos and putting them out and getting feedback, and hearing about which ones I need to update. So that's definitely a new skill. And also, as a content creator, I want to write articles and find the things that really resonate with people and that I can really speak to in an intelligent way. So I've learned how to write some articles, and also um, to not think that I can do everything by myself, even though it's my business.
Oh,
So
that's so
I've
good.
I've found an editor that I work with, and I'll create what I think is a great article, and then when he's done, then I know it's a great article because then I read it back again. It's like, oh, thank you for having a good editor.
Yeah, that's the like some of the top entrepreneurs. There'll be a certain area like building websites and certain things, and they'll have a team behind them, and then they'll focus on the one thing that they're great at.
Right,
Steve Jobs, nobody is great at everything.
right.
And then it's like the realization, what am I really good at, and then focus on that and get better at whatever that is too.
Yeah,
And then with the videos, what I found myself was I had no trouble speaking in front of people, but then it's like now this is different. At first I just had my cell phone here, well, not that one, but anyways, and I had like a tripod that was probably like about this big, and now you're staring at a phone, and I'm not getting, we feed off of other people.
right.
If I'm just talking and you're not here and I'm talking about the same basic subject, we feed off of other people and what they're saying. And, there might be something you say during this, and I'll like, wow, that's a great point. And I'll get animated about it. But now we're staring at this phone, and, it's like, that doesn't seem like me.
Yeah,
It took, with my original YouTube channel, it took like 100 videos. And then finally one day I go, I recognize myself. And that took a long time,
yeah. No, it's a very good point, and I
really
think
long time. And I just kept, eventually you'll get there, and then you'll go, wow, I like that. And
yeah,
it may
yeah.
take a long time.
It's true. I think what you're bringing up is things that reinforce connection between people. Um, it's that whole idea of are we really separate or are we actually connected? And um, I think the things that reinforce connection, like when you have the right size screen and you can see that there's more of a relationship between, when I say something that resonates or you say something and or one of us makes each other laugh or you can
Yeah.
tell that connection is successful. And you've also seen interviews, even when the technology is right, where the people aren't just can't quite connect, and it gives you that feeling inside, like ooh, ooh, you know?
Exactly. And they kind of seem like they're, yeah, in different planes or something of
Yeah.
that nature. What obstacles could stand in your way of accomplishing your goals? And of course, we can't totally predict that, but what are some potential obstacles?
Yeah. So some of the obstacles are internal, and some of the obstacles are external. Um, So, for example, while I have a corporate job, I'm not able to work with people one on one during the day. So that kind of limits, a certain slice of clients. Um, I don't think that I have encountered. No, I'm gonna retract that statement. Um, I have encountered obstacles. So the obstacles are like like I said, not being able to be physically around people. That has been a real obstacle. Because even though we can achieve some things with Zoom and video chats and other ways of connecting, it still is not the same as being around people. And some of the most important conversations happen in the hallway, or in the bathroom, or between meetings. And so now a lot of that is just not available.
So
um,
true. Yeah. A lot of times we think things have to be so organized, but a lot of times when you're saying you're passing a hall or something, it's a natural conversation. Nobody's nervous, nobody's thinking of this and that, and they're very much themselves.
right. And
And
then I
so
would
so
say,
true.
yeah, I would say that the internal obstacles, um, I'm more familiar with wrestling with my gremlins. So um, I know that sometimes I have limiting beliefs, you know, um, and so I might have some negative self-talk and think like, oh, I'd really like to write an article about this topic, and then part of my inner talk will say, well, who's going to want to read that? That's not a popular topic. um, so there's a lot of limiting beliefs, so I have to kind of check myself and say, am I preventing myself from being successful?
Yeah, what I've done myself, and here's the thing that people don't realize. Some of your best entrepreneurs, Richard Branson and people like this, maybe they don't advertise it, but everybody will have some negative thoughts. And we
Yeah.
have to, you know, because if we don't realize that, then we're going to beat ourselves even more.
Yeah, I learned a really interesting technique through my coaching school about how to deal with these, and how to help other people deal with their negative self-talk. And the idea is to simply look at when negative thoughts arise, to say, aha, I realize that a lot of my inner negative self-talk really first got set up in me when I was a very young child,
So true.
and a way to protect me. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I had that thought, oh, who's going to want to read that article? Then if I can manage to pull myself out and observe myself that way, then I have an opportunity to say, you know what? First of all, I can tell that that thought is a way of protecting me. And so I really want to, like, yes, I want to be protected. So I accept protection, but that message is a way to protect a little boy. And I want to upgrade that message and say, yeah, what is the way to protect myself as an adult? So I want to change that message from who would want to read an article like that to say, how can I know what articles people are interested in reading? And then it transforms from a worry and a doubt into, now I'm curious. How can I pick article subjects that I'm confident people would like to read? Because
Yeah,
that's really what's going on, right?
taking shaping the fear into a question and an answer and then a solution,
Right,
which
right,
will lead to empowerment too.
right.
The complete opposite. That's awesome. And then
Yeah.
it's like following that road and like, okay, I'm going. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
look at
Now,
this.
I admit I don't always do that process when I hit myself with a negative self thought, but when I can catch myself, it's very liberating,
Exactly. And saying, hey, I can control this.
right?
Is there anybody that you know or you could come in contact with that could help you accomplish your goals
Oh,
that
yeah.
you already have or you could, seek out?
Yeah. So I was reading a book about coaching, and it had this line in it that said, you know, if you believe that coaching helps others, do you have a coach? And so it really kind of encouraged everyone who was reading the book to, especially coaches, to have their own coach. And so I had worked with somebody. I have some connections in Scotland, so I worked with a guy there and asked him immediately after I read that sentence. I sent him an email and said, "Hey, I'm getting certified, and I want to ask you to be my coach." So I set up a coaching relationship with him, and from a from a artistic and musical discipline, I definitely have my mentors and my teachers that I have relied on. So yeah, I really appreciate my relationships with the people who I can kind of turn to, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's also not just the information, the friendships that you get from this.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's really powerful. And
Yeah,
then
I'll say one thing that I learned about having a coach is I really appreciate the pressure that is on the client, right? Because I want to be a good client, and I want to be dig in, do my homework. I want to be brutally honest with myself. I want to, not hide my flaws, and I really want to approve. I really want to prove to myself that um, I'm doing as much as I can to improve my life. And so that's a lot of pressure. So if you're getting coached weekly, it can feel like, oh, I gotta be brutally honest with myself again. Oh, I have to look at my goals that I looked at last week again this week. So that really helps me now when I work with clients to have some compassion and empathy. And as I'm pulling the best out of them and helping them reach their successes, to be able to say, I get it. Some of this work is really tough. And
mhm.
so that kind of helps people also understand the cadence. Do you want to be coached weekly? Or maybe it's better to have every other week as your cadence.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like when you work for a company, and you do a certain job, and then later when you're the manager, if you've worn the different hats and you've had those experiences, then what will happen is from putting yourself in the same experience, you'll start seeing things from another point of view, and it will help you develop your own personal coaching style. And that's really powerful. Otherwise, you're kind of missing something.
Right, right.
Because there's only so much we can get in a book and read. Not negating books and things like that, but
Yeah, there's
you
lots of examples like that. Like you probably heard of football players who take ballet classes. You know
Lynn Swan,
what?
Pittsburgh Steelers, Lynn Swan from the
Yeah,
70s.
yeah,
Yeah, and he was one of the top receivers. I thought of an example right immediately.
yeah,
And he was making these crazy acrobatic catches, and it always seemed like he would always do this really well, especially when he played my Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
yeah. Or if you look at people like Yo-Yo Ma, who are classically trained, who would play jazz or work with musicians from around the world and different time signatures, and so he's looking outside of his main discipline and getting lots of. He's an amazing musician. Yeah.
That's awesome. What would it be like or feel like if you accomplished your goals for 2021?
It would feel amazing. It would feel I would feel very free. Um, I'd be very happy. Yeah, yeah. I think it. I have this sort of vision of when everything is kind of fully aligned, right? Then you just feel good when you're at the grocery store. You Even if there are things that are being wrestled with, there's when there's a deep sense of purpose, um, then everything kind of feels like I'm going to the grocery store so that I can eat well, so that I can help people, so that we can all live a better life, and and yeah, it just kind of builds on the good feeling, so that there's no doubt about, I know why I'm washing my clothes, I know why I'm cleaning my room, I know why, um,
Yeah,
as opposed to the
you
other
see
areas
the good
where,
in the small things.
yeah, as opposed to, some areas where, um, kind of walking around feeling a little bit lost or feeling in doubt because you those times when I haven't been aligned, and I know that feeling, and that feels the opposite. It feels like, oh, kind of like, I would describe some of those as like soul crushing, just really having a lot lack of meaning, and not, like, why am I doing this, and just feeling really bad about some of those things. So I anticipate, like, if I achieve all my goals, feeling very purposeful and aligned.
Yeah, good answer.
Yeah.
Let me see. 1 second. How are your goals in alignment with your values?
Oh, yeah. um, Very, very much aligned. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I have processes in my life coaching work where I call that out with people pretty early on in the process, and I really like what that it kind of sets up a real intentionality. So again, that lost feeling that I was described often comes from doing some activity or thinking some thoughts, it's not a matter of alignment or out of alignment, but it's more of not having the awareness of what my values were in the past. So I have learned over time that one of my highest values is uh, creative, authentic expression. So I know that when I have something that I want to say, if I can put that into a song that sounds good, and I'm happy to sing and people want to hear, that just lights me up. I get that sort of yes all up and down my spine, right? And it's more of that. In other times when I was struggling or lost or upset, I wasn't even thinking of values at all. So I find that when I work with people on their values, it's often just a matter of saying, what's most important to you? What lights up your life? What makes you say yes to life? What gets you excited? And and then as we start to bring those ideas into their mind, say, hold on to those. And then, as what I think of it is, I have my decision tree over here, and I think, okay, I got to make an important decision. Okay, and as I go through my decision tree, then I think, how does that hold up against the backdrop of my values? And if it's like, you know, that doesn't really match your values at all. Okay, well, that's probably where I feel a little bit lost around that decision.
So true.
And if I could get it to line up with something that I know I value, then it's like, oh, it has the feeling of like, that's that last puzzle piece where you get to smush it in and be like, ha ha.
The aha moment.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, and the coaching you're doing and the music, it's aligned in that you're all part of your creative expression.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So if I were to talk about my values, I would say, I value communication, creative self-expression, integrity, and connectedness. You know,
Very
I
important
I
now.
I could probably list, 40 or 50 values, but those I think are some of my highest values.
Which of your goals is the most important for you to accomplish for this year, or would give you the most satisfaction of accomplishing?
Yeah, I think it would be my taking my business and building it out, my coaching business. Yeah.
Oh, wait. And I think it's, is it that one where you mentioned before that it pays all your bills?
Yes. Yeah. So I
Okay.
see that as sort
I
of like
remember you
the
saying that earlier.
right. That's the next rung of the ladder I'm climbing up to. Now that I've kind of gotten out of the student mode and yeah.
Yeah. And I like that. It's definitely measurable. And then you're like, and then you can have more of a like, I did it.
Right.
Exactly. It's like, will your goals be, this one is, I think this one's just so easy to answer.
Oh,
Will
okay.
your
I
goals
like the
benefit
easy
others? I say it's an outstanding yes.
one. So I didn't
Oh,
hear
I'm
it.
sorry. The question is, will your goals benefit others? And that's the whole purpose of it. So I think this is an outstanding five exclamation marks.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that phrase win-win. So um
That
the
is a good one.
my success will result in the more people I can help.
Exactly. And touch their lives, and then they can have measurable things and like, hey, I was here and now I'm here.
Right. Right.
And I've really traveled really far. And then it's time to do that. What are you willing to sacrifice in order to accomplish your goals?
That's a really great question. So the way I would answer that is uh, quite a bit. um, so what that makes me think of is, as we're talking about the goals and I have this. I've set the goal to being able to pay my bills through my coaching business. Um, so it's interesting because we talked about the need for coaching is really at this time quite great. You
Oh,
know,
definitely. Because
um,
we have less people to connect with and share ideas. And what do
right?
you think of this? And yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
things like anger, like loneliness, isolation are almost as epidemic as the virus itself.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You can feel it in the air. There's a
So,
different energy.
but not everyone who has a great need has the ability to pay for coaching or help. So I take this very seriously, and I'm looking at the ways that I can still work pro bono, still help people. So I'm doing a variety of very creative um, ways that I can still be helpful and still provide coaching. Um, and as I'm putting my ideas out in the world, some people are coming to me with saying, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" So I have an example. There's a new university in Mexico, and I found out about it and got invited to offer a lecture. And then through meeting the folks at the university, it's a bilingual university, so I actually don't speak Spanish, um, and I explained to them that I'm life coaching, and that I had, for example, this anger reframing anger workshop. And so I've been able to bring some of my workshops and transform them into lectures and present them to the university students. Um, but they're not in a position to pay me, but the need just is so great. So I look on part of my output as how can I still be helpful? And it's been an interesting process because I have to look at and say it doesn't meet my income goals, but that's not the end of the story. And those are not the only part of the goals, because as a life coach, I want to be actually helping people.
Yeah, the
So
impact part of it.
yeah. So I what I did is I kind of sat down and I said, what are the benefits to me? Because I know the benefits are not monetary. So one example that I have is, this is a self my anger my reframing anger workshop is a self created workshop, and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Um, and so they have their university, they have a on staff psychologist who helps create their curriculum. So in this case, I'm able to present my ideas about anger and have a psychologist kind of vet my ideas and come back to me and tell me, I would suggest that you change this, or I would suggest that you change that. So far, he hasn't really suggested that I make any substantial changes. It's just how to change it from a workshop mode to a lecture mode. So that's a real benefit to me, is that now I get to say, not only do I have a decent workshop about an important topic, but it's been vetted by a psychologist who works at a university. So
So
so that felt like it was important to say, not all of the benefits that I'm going to get for my goals are going to be monetary.
that's so true. And then, being able to make a positive impact and touch other people's lives, and even many years from now, it could still go, and the information keeps on moving and moving and moving and reaching more and more people over time the longer you do this.
Right. So I can say to myself, like, there are benefits from having a test bed to present new material to, and even help have them say, we think this is the important topic next. So after you teach us about anger, we want to we have you teach us about overcoming loneliness, or
Yeah, and that's an important thing that our viewers should have the comfort to be able to share something that you have, and learn from it, and not be afraid of constructive criticism,
oh yeah.
and being able to grow from that and not have the fear of the criticism and that sort of thing.
Well, and then, we were just talking about values, so I can say, like, maybe my decision tree is, should I or should I not work with this university pro bono, right? So I'm trying to make this decision. And then I can say, one of the values that this supports is generosity. Like, I want to be generous, and I think it's good to be generous. So I get to be generous by doing this, and it has all these other benefits. So that's why I think that it wasn't an easy decision, and it's not like I have 50 paying opportunities and this one opportunity. I'm really struggling to find paying opportunities. That's the truth in the soup that we're swimming in. But this feels like it does meet a need so directly and it has good benefits, and it's not everything is going to pay me.
Yeah, the thing is now you have more opportunity to speak. You have more opportunity to polish your message
Right.
and those sort of things. One of the things I did at the beginning of my journey was before I started my first YouTube channel, I joined Toastmasters, and the topics and what I was doing, those were kind of my first YouTube videos. So once I actually started the YouTube channel, it was like I've already been, and that message started getting polished, and it still will continue to be polished, and I that will never end. That will never stop.
That's funny. I also joined Toastmasters.
And
Great
then
minds
well,
think alike.
one of the things I got out of that is I'll tell you what, ahs and ums on my YouTube videos, it's not happening.
Very
I'll
good.
pause. There is the ahs and the ums, but there's a pause there, but nobody notices
Very good. Yeah.
because they'll just say, oh, they'll go, it can be taken as a positive thing. You got that little pause. You can be self-conscious. I'm searching what I'm saying. And then, but then the viewer might be going, wow, he's got some really good ideas. And he's very deep about this and very thorough about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And not be
That's
self-conscious.
yeah. That's a benefit to Toastmasters for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. I remember that. And then you'd be like, I didn't do any ahs or ums. And then they go, we got eight ahs and ums on you. Like, what?
Right. So that's
Like,
another
what's
aspect when
wrong
I
with
was talking
me?
about creating my videos. I noticed I had a lot of ums and awkward starts and stops. And, yeah.
Are your goals measurable? Well, we have, they're definitely, like you said before, that goal, and I really like it a lot. Hey, I'm going to get to the point where I pay, my coaching pays all my bills. Are there some of your other goals that are measurable too?
Yeah,
And you'll
it's interesting because as I think about it, I think that I don't really have measurable goals around songwriting. And so what that can mean is um, I might not write a song for a year. I might not write a song for a month. And then I might write a song every week for 8 weeks. So it's not consistent. Um, so I kind of look to other indicators like how satisfied I am, in myself around songwriting. And at the point where I've written hundreds of songs, the dynamic starts to change. So after I wrote my very first song, it was like, oh, I I wrote a song. Do I get to call myself a songwriter? Do I get to think of myself like an artist? And it felt like such a big deal. And then the second song, oh, it was so important. And then over time, and at the place where I'm at now, it feels like the most important thing is to really craft the song as best as possible, not the amount of songs that I write. And so there's it feels like there's a maturity process as well, that it's okay for the goals to change throughout the life of the whatever is creating the goal.
exactly, may it be music or whatever you're
Right. Yeah.
exactly pursuing.
Yeah. And and then if I think about how to be a better eater as an older person, um, I might find that there are some new goals along the way. I think that I will. So it's like I have my ears peeled for, are there techniques that would help me. Um, I even heard, like, for example, like it's a good idea to time yourself after you finish a meal, and give yourself about 20 minutes because it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to feel really full.
Okay.
So
Well, good stuff.
that's probably why Italians after right after they finish something think what's next to eat because there's that window where you don't notice that you're full and so you can just put pack some more in.
And then you're like, oh, what did I just do? and then I and then you're like, oh, it's time to leave the restaurant. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
They're shutting down, they're kicking us out. Yeah.
Well, that was like Jerry Seinfeld. He was doing a stand up and he was kind of like, you eat, and then it's like, I'll have more of that and more of this. And you feel like the king he sang. And then, and then the bill comes, you're like, what's this?
Who ordered all this?
Yeah. It's like, you're like full and all this. I think that's why, don't go to I say don't go to the grocery store when you're starving. Make sure you
Right.
eat before.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to be
Yeah.
like this and this.
Yeah, it changes how
I
you shop.
noticed recently there's more temptation than before. Before COVID, you just go to the aisle, and then they have the magazines and the gum and the candy. But now they're calling you up that register 3, and as you're in that line, they know what they're doing. They lined up all these potato chips and snacks. They didn't just put a divider there. No, they have quadrupled or 10 times more temptations now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And they were like, wait, this is a great opportunity. And they that was,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh. And when it goes back and it's just that little candy thing, they'll be like, whoa, oh, maybe they'll keep that going. They'll go, hey, this worked.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. We'll see. Something I thought about recently when I was in the grocery store. I'm like, will this last? Possibly. Or the outside seating with the restaurants. People are catching on to that. We're
Right.
becoming more European.
Yeah.
It's an outside cafe or whatever you want. That's another thing. Well, that those are two things I'm wondering. We'll see. I
Yeah.
can't say for sure, but those might last. What daily routines will you follow to achieve your goals?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So when I hear daily routines, I translate that to like practices. So it's interesting because so I have daily routines. Like I said, I'm a meditator. Um, I also do some kind of yoga stretching daily. Um, and those, some of the physical and mental and spiritual disciplines definitely contribute to my success. Um, I know that I have disciplines around music. I think you might have stumbled upon a good idea of something I need to think about for disciplines for both being ready to transition into retirement and specifically for life coaching. I know that I do. I don't know if I would call it a practice, but reading and looking at different material. So I also I have my fingers in a lot of different pies, and I also run a small men's group, and I'm looking at ways to launch more men's groups that I can run. Um, so I found a great book from my coach in Scotland about how people learn in small groups and how to facilitate that. So I look forward to like my small group is they're used to me treating them like guinea pigs. So I bring little experiments to them and see if they resonate with it or not.
That's a really
Yeah,
good.
I think that's an area where I could, dig a little bit deeper into.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You mentioned reading, and one of the things. It's funny the things that we tell ourselves. I'll give you a perfect example. People will be saying, "I can't read." Oh, that's a good book. Yeah, that's a good book. But I'm really sorry. I can't read it because I'm reading this book. I, I can only read one book at a time. Now check this out. We tell ourselves this, but does our life history say that we can only do that? So, how did you get through school? Because if we're doing one book at a time, maybe 40 years old, I will get out of high school. Thank you very much. So, I was doing that. So, myself until this year. So, I was doing that thing. Somebody would say blah, blah, blah. And I was only, I do one book at a time and then I read it and then I take notes and all this. So I've made two changes. So now I'm like, wait a second. So now I have a rotation. This is what I've created. I have a rotation of 4 books. So right now, this morning I was reading a Richard Branson book. So there's like a rotation, and then I look forward to going there. And then some of the things I'll be using for my life coaching, that sort of thing. So I'm going to take some notes for that. But the other ones where I'm still getting knowledge, but it's not going towards a program, I cut out the note part. And I'm going to, and say, hey, I'm going to get the main lessons. And I think the perfect example of main lessons is, for me so far, the perfect example is the 7 steps for highly effective people. So one of the exercises in there is to write a mission statement. So
Oh,
here
great.
I am, I'm writing a mission statement. And I only remember one line from the mission statement, and all the other is. And the one thing I got, and this is what I got from the book, is I'm working in the school environment, but then here's the whole thing: is explains what I'm doing, why am I getting into life coaching, why am I getting into entrepreneurship and all that. And it was help those who really want to be helped. In the public school, you're being thrown in there and that sort of thing. And, you know, some students might be interested in a certain part of history, but then you have to hit all this other stuff. And yeah, so now, there's when you're in a school, there's different levels of resistance.
Right.
Back in our days, we didn't have texting. There was drawing, there was passing notes. That's levels of resistance. Sleeping is a level of resistance. And then the highest level, I'm going to start getting crazy. It's all levels of resistance. So,
Right.
exactly. So that's what I got from that. And then, and now if I look at certain books I have in my library, I probably can pick it up, and the first thing that goes into my mind, that's what I got out of that book. And if it's just one thing, it could be really powerful. And then if we actually, that was for inspiration, but then there's some of that one thing that could be something that'll actually be an actionable thing that will get me out of being stuck at a certain place in my journey, whatever that may be.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Just one little thing, and it can be, yeah. So then I got my why from that, like my little war cry, like. "Ah." So then, if I feel like, "Ah," I could say, help those who really want to be helped, and then something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great because it also reminds you of what your values are.
Exactly. Did you write down your goals for the year, or? or do you tend to write down your goals?
Well, I know that I have in terms of all the work that I did with my coach because you know, we knew that making things measurable and specific and reasonable and actionable, what's that SMART acronym? Um, and that's really important. So yeah, um, we did a lot of looking at how do you know or how can you know or will you know that the time is right for you to retire. And that's not always an easy, obvious, um, milestone to set up.
Yeah, it can be different with different people too. There's parts of the things that they'll say in a workshop that I think applies to everybody, but then there's some personable things that there's that little maybe 15-20% or whatever that is, that it's there's certain things that make total sense with some numbers and some figures and stuff, but then there's that little whatever percent, I'm sure,
Yeah,
that is like, and it's personal for that person. It's what makes them feel comfortable, whatever that percent is, I'm sure.
right. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Okay. What are final question?
Oh,
All right. What are the first steps to accomplish your goals? The first steps, like in the early part of the year.
yeah. So this is especially challenging, to answer this during a pandemic, um, because the rate of change is almost more than I can keep up with, or that any of us can keep up with.
Yeah. So
So now, at the point we're at right now, it is January 23rd. Um, we're anticipating how vaccines will change the dynamic.
exactly.
So I can make plans as though we're going to be in lockdown for the whole year, and that may be a reasonable assumption. Or I can make plans to say, well, as soon as I'm vaccinated and I know most people around me are, then I can start to think of when I can be in person with groups of people.
Right.
So I have to sort of take all of that into account and say what's possible, what's realistic, what's reasonable, what's actionable. Um,
Yeah, with the things that you
yeah.
can't control.
Right,
Exactly.
right. So I think my first steps are, um, I might have to think in both ways simultaneously and say, I know that I need to have networking goals. So I'm looking for all those places where I can get my content out and be read, where I can have my workshops, have people find out about my workshops, and then my one-on-one coaching. Um, so yeah, and I've done some things with looking into Facebook advertising, and there's a whole lot to learn there about how to best pull people in. Um, So yeah, I think my first step is to have some networking goals around how I can, you know, get my message out in to where it's needed, to where I can find the people who need coaching, who need to, people who could benefit from my workshops. And yeah, so I would say networking is my first kind of goal.
Well, thank you for your time, and we're good.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to meeting up during halftime,
Yeah.
in the middle of the year, and then there'll be a series of questions to make adjustments and that sort of thing, and then we'll meet at the end of the year. And I hope this we will both get a benefit from this, and we'll both have a great 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Yeah,
for interviewing
yeah,
me.
thank you very much. And one of the times I would like to hear one of your songs. That'd be really awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
cool.
Very, very nice to meet you through this
Oh,
format.
oh, thank you.